All right, so get this. We're diving into Dwarka today.
Ooh, Dwarka.
Yeah. Is it like a total myth? Or was it a real city that got swallowed by the ocean?
Right. Like, how much of it is legend and how much is actual history?
That's what we're going to try to figure out, right? We've got all these sources, ancient Hindu epics, the Mahabharata.
Oh, yeah, the Mahabharata. Talk about epic.
Plus, there's all this archaeology, like stuff they dug up from the ocean floor.
Oh, no, right. And then there are even those theories about, like, ancient, super advanced technology.
Wild stuff, right? Like, how do you even begin to unpack all that?
Well, I think that's the beauty of it. It's this puzzle where you have to kind of sift through all these different pieces.
Totally. Okay, so let's start with the Mahabharata, right? It's a pretty major Hindu epic, isn't it?
Huge. It's one of the most important texts in Hinduism.
And it talks about Dwarka, this magnificent city built by Lord Krishna.
Right, and it's not just like a side story. Dwarka is really central to the whole narrative.
But then, boom, the city ends up submerged beneath the Arabian Sea.
Yeah, it's like this dramatic end to Krishna's story.
Okay, so we've got this awesome, like, epic tale. But then the Mahabharata also mentions a curse, right?
A curse that falls on Krishna's whole clan, the Yadavas.
And that leads to all this, like, internal conflict. And eventually, that's what causes Dwarka to sink.
It's almost like this warning about what happens when you get too powerful, or like when ambition goes unchecked.
So it's like a cautionary tale, kind of.
Yeah, totally. But here's the thing. What if there's more to the story than just myth? What if there's like actual historical evidence to back it up?
Oh, you mean like archaeological discoveries?
Exactly. There have been some amazing underwater finds off the coast of modern-day Dwarka in India.
No way. Like, what kind of stuff?
Think submerged structures, artifacts dating back thousands of years. They've even found evidence of a harbor. Like, it was a real port city, a bustling hub of trade and activity.
Whoa, so it's not just like random rubble down there.
Huh.
It's signs of a pretty sophisticated civilization.
Exactly. It's like a window into a lost world.
Okay, so what kind of artifacts did they actually find? Anything with Krishna's name on it?
Well, no, not exactly, but there are fortified foundations along the Gomanti River.
Fortified foundations, so like walls and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. And it suggests some pretty advanced city planning for that time period. They've also found anchors, pieces of pottery, even remnants of these ancient jars called amphorae.
Amphorae, those like big clay pots.
Yep, those are the ones. They were used to transport goods all over the ancient world.
So it's like they've got proof that Dwarka was this bustling port city.
Oh yeah, definitely. Trading with all sorts of places, like connecting with civilizations in West Asia and beyond.
That's amazing. But wait, how do they even know how old this stuff is?
Well, scientists use a couple of pretty cool techniques, carbon dating and thermoluminescence dating. It's a way to measure the age of things based on like radioactivity and stuff.
Science.
Right. And these tests show that some of the Dwarka finds could be as old as 2000 BC.
2000 BC. Whoa, that's a really long time ago. So are you saying that these ruins could be older than the traditional timeline for the Mahabharata?
It's possible, and that's where things get really interesting. Some scholars believe these discoveries confirm that Krishna's Dwarka really existed, like in the exact location described in the epic.
Oh, wow.
But others are more skeptical. They suggest that the site might predate the Mahabharata era.
So, like, it could be a different Dwarka.
Right.
Or maybe an older city that got absorbed into the legend.
Exactly. It's like trying to piece together this giant puzzle with some missing pieces.
It's like we're dealing with layers upon layers of history and myth, right?
Yeah.
Trying to tease apart what's real and what's, like, embellishment.
Right, and that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating to explore. We're not just looking at a bunch of old rocks, it's about unraveling a story.
Yeah.
And a story that's been told and retold for centuries.
And sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones that have those, like, blurred lines between fact and fiction.
Definitely. I mean, think about it. We're talking about an ancient city that may or may not have existed, described in this epic tale, and now we're finding actual physical evidence of a city submerged beneath the waves.
It's like, how could you not be intrigued by that?
Exactly. And speaking of intrigue, are you ready to talk about those flying machines mentioned in the Mahabharata?
Oh yeah, the Vimanas. Okay, so are we really talking about ancient Indian astronauts here?
Well, hold on now. Let's not get too carried away just yet. It's important to approach these kinds of interpretations with a healthy dose of, critical thinking.
Right. It's easy to jump to those, like, super sci-fi conclusions, but I guess that's part of the fun, right?
Totally. It's like the Mahabharata describes these Vimanas, which some people interpret as like these advanced aircraft.
Yeah, and it sparked all these theories about ancient civilizations having technology that was way ahead of their time.
It's definitely captured people's imaginations, that's for sure. But I think it's also important to remember that interpretations of ancient texts can be super subjective.
Okay, so maybe not ancient aliens, but it does make you wonder, right? Like, what if there's more to these stories than we realize?
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep an open mind.
I'm all for that. So let's shift gears for a second and talk about modern-day Dwarka. It's not just a bunch of underwater ruins, right? It's actually a pretty significant place.
Oh, absolutely. Dwarka is a major pilgrimage destination for Hindus all over the world.
Really? Why is that?
Well, for starters, there's the Dwarkadish temple. It's believed to be built on the site of Krishna's palace, and it's a hugely important religious site.
So it's like people go there to connect with Krishna,
Yeah.
even though it's all shrouded in myth and legend.
Exactly. It's like the power of the story transcends time, and it's not just about individual faith either. Dwarka is a place where communities come together to celebrate their shared heritage.
It's like the story of Dwarka has woven itself into the fabric of Indian culture, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, and it really highlights that complex relationship between faith, history, and archaeology. For a lot of people, the sanctity of Dwarka goes way beyond any physical evidence.
Right. It's about something deeper, something more spiritual.
Exactly. It's like the belief itself is what matters most.
Okay, so we've got ancient texts, we've got underwater ruins, and we've got a modern-day pilgrimage site. What's next in this Dwarka saga? What does the future hold for this place?
Well, get this, the Gujarat government is actually planning to launch submarine tourism in Dwarka.
Woohoo! Submarine tourism? Are you serious?
Dead serious. They want to offer underwater views of the submerged ruins.
That's insane. It's like something out of a sci-fi movie,
Yeah.
but also like kind of amazing.
Right. It's this whole new way to experience history.
But hold on, doesn't that raise a bunch of questions? Like, how do you make sure those underwater sites are protected?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's a huge concern. Archaeologists and preservationists are already working on figuring out the best way to do it.
It's like a balancing act, right?
Yeah.
Making it accessible, but also making sure it's not damaged in the process.
Exactly. And I think it really highlights something important. We're at this point where technology is giving us all these new ways to revisit the past, but we have to proceed with caution.
Totally. It's like we have responsibility to be careful to respect these sites.
Right. It's not just about us, it's about preserving these incredible places for future generations.
Well said. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. Ancient epics, underwater ruins, modern-day pilgrimage, and now even submarine tourism.
It's like Dwarka is this never-ending story.
Totally.
Right.
So what's the one big takeaway you want our listener to walk away with from this first part of our deep dive?
That's a good question. I think the biggest takeaway is that Dwarka, whether it's a historical fact or just a really powerful myth, continues to fascinate and inspire us.
It's like this enduring mystery, right?
Exactly. And I think it reminds us of the power of stories, the allure of the unknown, and the mysteries that are still waiting to be uncovered beneath the waves.
Beautifully put. And I also think it's a reminder that sometimes the most satisfying answers aren't about absolute certainty.
Ooh, that's good.
It's about sparking more questions, right?
Yeah.
And inspiring us to keep exploring.
I couldn't agree more. And with that in mind, I'm really curious to see what other insights we uncover as we keep digging into Dwarka.
Me too. Let's dive into the next part of our Dwarka deep dive.
You know, as we dig deeper into Dwarka, it's like you realize it's more than just a place, you know? It's this whole narrative that's been passed down for centuries, shaping beliefs and inspiring art and drawing people to it for thousands of years.
It's like this city, whether it was real or mythical, has become part of Indian culture. We talked about the Mahabharata, but are there other ancient texts that mention Dwarka?
Absolutely. The Puranas, which are this collection of ancient Hindu scriptures, they talk about Dwarka too. They go into more detail about how grand it was and Krishna's rule and how it eventually sank beneath the waves. Picture a city decked out in gold and precious stones, like this vibrant center of trade and culture where Krishna ruled, wisely and justly.
Sounds kind of like a golden age, right? But these texts, don't they often blend historical details with mythological elements? How do we separate fact from fiction when the lines are so blurry?
That's the challenge, but it's also what makes it so interesting, right? Working with ancient sources, you have to kind of read between the lines, consider the cultural context, and understand that these stories were often trying to convey like deeper truths or moral lessons or spiritual insights.
So it's not just about taking every word literally, but more about understanding the symbolism and the messages hidden in the story.
Exactly. It takes some critical thinking, wouldn't you say?
For sure. And speaking of puzzles, let's go back to the archaeological evidence for a minute. We talked about fortified foundations and anchors and pottery, but have they found anything that directly links those ruins to Krishna or the Mahabharata? Like, something with his name on it?
No ancient inscription saying Krishna was here just yet. It's super difficult to directly link artifacts to specific people or events from that long ago. Remember, we're talking about a time shrouded in myth and legends, so the physical evidence is always open to interpretation.
Okay, I see what you mean. But even if we can't definitively say this is Krishna's teacup, the fact that these ruins exist in that location is still pretty significant, right? It backs up the idea that there was a major city in that area during ancient times.
You got it. The presence of such extensive underwater remains, regardless of their exact link to the Mahabharata, tells us a lot about the region's history. It suggests that there was some serious sophistication in terms of urban planning, construction, and maritime trade, way more than we might have thought possible for ancient civilizations.
It's like these ruins are making us rethink what we know about ancient civilizations and what they were capable of. It's pretty cool to realize there's still so much we don't know about our own history.
Absolutely, and that's exactly why it's so important to approach these discoveries with a sense of humility and be open to questioning the things we think we know. Dwarka is a perfect example of how myth, archaeology, and faith can all come together, and it challenges us to broaden our perspectives.
Okay, so we've got these submerged ruins, potentially thousands of years old, maybe the legendary Dwarka, maybe not. But here's a question that's been bugging me. If this city was so grand and advanced, how did it end up underwater? Was it really a curse, or is there like a more scientific explanation?
The eternal debate. While the Mahabharata blames a divine curse, science has a few other ideas that could explain it. One of the leading theories is that rising sea levels, which happens naturally over time, gradually flooded the city.
So instead of some sudden catastrophic event, it was more like a slow and gradual process. That makes sense considering that sea levels have gone up and down over thousands of years.
Right. And remember those anchors and amphorae we were talking about? They're proof that it was a busy port city right on the coast, which would have made it extra vulnerable to any changes in sea level.
So it could have been a combination of things, right?
Yeah.
Like the city's location, the rising sea levels, maybe some other environmental changes, all leading to its eventual demise. And maybe those events, which people at the time didn't fully understand, got woven into the story of a divine curse.
That's definitely a plausible explanation. It shows how, throughout history, humans have used storytelling, myth, and religion to try to make sense of natural events that they couldn't explain.
It reminds us that our understanding of the world is always evolving, right? Things that might have seemed supernatural or magical in the past often have perfectly logical scientific explanations. But that doesn't make those stories any less powerful or less important to human culture.
Exactly. That's what makes Dwarka such a fascinating case study. It's this place where science, myth, and faith all intersect, and it forces us to think critically and appreciate all the different facets of human history.
All right, so we've explored those ancient texts, we've looked at the underwater ruins, and we've considered some scientific explanations for why Dwarka might have sunk. But let's not forget about Dwarka's significance today. It's not just an archaeological site or a city from a myth, right?
Definitely not. Dwarka is a living, breathing testament to how powerful faith can be. It's a sacred city that attracts millions of pilgrims every year who are searching for spiritual connection, blessings, and a tangible link to the legendary Krishna.
It's pretty amazing how a place rooted in ancient lore still holds such deep religious and cultural significance. What is it about Dwarka that draws so many people to it?
For many, it's about connecting with a narrative that's been passed down for generations, a story that's shaped their beliefs and values. The Dwarkadish temple, which is believed to be built right where Krishna's palace once stood, is a powerful symbol of faith. It offers a real, tangible connection to the divine.
It's like stepping into a living myth, where the past and present blur together. I can only imagine how powerful it must feel for pilgrims to be in a place that's so closely tied to their beliefs.
It's a deeply personal experience, and it's not just about individual faith either. Dwarka is a place where communities gather to celebrate their shared heritage, to participate in rituals and festivals that have been passed down for centuries. It's a testament to the strength of tradition and collective identity.
So Dwarka has all these layers of meaning, right? Archaeological, mythical, and deeply spiritual. It's like a microcosm of India itself with its incredible blend of history, culture, and faith.
That's a perfect way to put it. That's exactly what makes Dwarka so captivating to explore. It defies easy categorization, and it encourages us to embrace its complexity, question our assumptions, and appreciate the multifaceted nature of human experience.
And as we've seen, the exploration of Dwarka is far from over. With submarine tourism on the horizon, who knows what new discoveries and insights await us in those depths? It's a pretty exciting time to be digging into this ancient mystery.
You said it. And speaking of exciting developments, there's another aspect of Dwarka's modern significance we haven't even talked about yet. Its potential to be a catalyst for economic growth and cultural exchange.
Oh, tell me more. How does an ancient city like Dwarka play a role in India's future?
Well, as Dwarka becomes more and more recognized as a global pilgrimage destination, it's not just attracting devotees, but also tourists and researchers from all over the world. This influx of visitors is creating tons of opportunities for economic development, especially in the tourism and hospitality industries.
So it's boosting the local economy, creating jobs, and stimulating growth in a region that might not have traditionally benefited from tourism.
That's incredible.
Right, and it's not just about economics either. More tourism can also foster cultural exchange, promote understanding between people from different backgrounds, and raise awareness about India's rich heritage on a global scale.
It's like this ancient city, wrapped in myth and mystery, is becoming a bridge between the past and the future, connecting people from all different cultures and backgrounds.
I love that. It really emphasizes the fact that exploring the past isn't just about finding old artifacts or figuring out ancient texts. It's also about understanding how those discoveries can shape our present and our future.
Such a great perspective. So Dwarka is more than just a lost city or a place of pilgrimage. It's a symbol of India's resilience, its enduring cultural heritage, and its potential to really make a mark on the world stage. Well said. So we've journeyed through ancient epics, explored those underwater ruins, considered those scientific explanations, and delved into the city's modern-day significance. What stands out to you as the most important takeaway from our exploration of Dwarka so far?
For me, is the realization that Dwarka isn't just a place, it's an idea. It's an idea that has echoed through centuries, shaping beliefs, inspiring art, and drawing people from all walks of life to its shores. It really represents that human desire to connect with something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that exploring the past isn't just an academic exercise, it can be a really personal and even transformative journey.
It really is. And it seems like this journey is taking us in some pretty unexpected directions. I mean, who would have thought we'd be talking about submarine tourism as a way to experience an ancient city?
Right. It's amazing how technology is like bridging that gap between the past and the present. We can engage with history in ways we couldn't have even imagined just a few decades ago. But like with any new frontier, there are some important questions we need to consider, like how do we balance accessibility with preservation?
Exactly. It's this awesome opportunity to share these underwater wonders with everyone, but we have to do it responsibly. These sites are fragile, and we don't want to damage them. We need to make sure they're protected for, future generations.
Absolutely. It's going to take a real collaborative effort. Archaeologists, preservationists, tourism operators, the local community, everyone working together, finding that sweet spot, where exploration and conservation can coexist.
It really highlights the idea that everything we do today impacts the future. It's our responsibility to be good stewards of our cultural heritage, making sure these treasures are passed on.
Thinking about Dwarka's future and its potential as this global destination, it's exciting to imagine it becoming a model for sustainable tourism. What if visitors could not only experience the wonders of the past, but also contribute to the well-being of the local community and the preservation of its heritage?
That's a powerful vision. Dwarka could be this shining example showing that tourism can be a force for good,
Yeah.
It could foster cultural understanding and promote sustainable practices.
It could even inspire other places around the world to rethink how they approach tourism, recognizing how important it is to balance economic growth with cultural sensitivity and environmental responsibility.
So the story of Dwarka isn't just about the past. It's about the future we choose to create, right? It reminds us that we have the power to shape our own destiny, to learn from history and build a more sustainable and inclusive world.
I love that. And that brings us to the core of what we've been talking about this whole time. The power of stories to connect us across time, cultures, and beliefs. Dwarka, whether it was a real city or a myth, it still speaks to us, makes us question things, use our imagination, and search for meaning in our own lives.
At the end of the day, that's what makes exploring history so rewarding, right? It's not just about remembering dates and facts, but connecting with the human experience with all its complexity and beauty and mystery.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. What are the stories you carry with you? What myths or legends or historical events have shaped your understanding of the world? And how can those stories inspire you to live a more meaningful life?
That's a beautiful challenge for our listeners to ponder. So to everyone out there, keep those stories alive, share them with others, and let them guide you on your own unique journeys of discovery. Who knows, maybe you'll uncover a story as captivating and inspiring as the tale of Dwarka. Until next time, keep exploring.